Greetings to all. I have a special guest today. If you can please kindly introduce yourself.
Um, hey everyone, my name is Yadiel Nieves-Santiago. I'm a student at UConn for undergoing a major in anthropology and a minor in linguistics. And I'm happy to be here today.
So today we have a Q&A with Yadiel Nieves. Gonna ask him some questions, and he's gonna break down his take on Arawakan languages. So let's get right into it. First, what is the common mistake you see in general in terms in creating a language or the idea of reviving a language?
So, as a clarification, are you meaning like languages in general, like outside of the Taino movement, like what mistakes have been made in trying to uh deal with reconstructing and reviving?
Yes.
Okay, so I think one of the common mistakes that I see within the revitalization efforts is that um, as like they're being done or whatnot, or as the languages are being sort of revived, we fail to take into account, the historical placement of like what that language was undergoing at the time, what what people were around it, but also what people were relevant to its development. So like there can I know that a lot of my focus is the Caribbean, so that I'm going to be using that as an example. There were a lot of different groups within the Caribbean, not all of them Arawakan. We have like the Macori and we have the Guanahatave, which their status as a people, has been in flux as new research shows up. And then we have the Siwayo, which had a different culture, than the other three or four, but also other Arawakan cultures within the region, like the Caquetío, which were just like south of the Taino, and the Kalinago, which were along the Lesser Antilles. Um, it's about putting yourself in the place of like where those people were in the past and understanding how all of that could come together into not just the language but also the culture there.
Well, that's a pretty good take. Um, so in your opinion, what is the state of the Taino language?
Now that's a tough one. So the Taino language, we're blessed to have a large collection of words compared to other extinct languages that have like small word lists of maybe like 20 or so words. We have a lot of um these dialects that retain colloquialisms that might be of Arawakan, origin. So even then though, a lot of what's left of the Taino language is not just mostly nouns, and we have a few recorded phrases, but also a lot of them have undergone Spanish influence. So they're a little different from what they would have been like originally within the language. So when it comes to the status of the Taino language, I would say that it's extinct, but that doesn't mean that there's not information to be gained from it.
That's a good one. So you pretty much answered the next one, which is can the Taino language be revived?
Um, Now that's a little different because revive would mean that we'd have to like, know enough about the language in order to bring it up to speed with like modernity. So, I'm gonna bring an example here with like Hebrew. The modern Hebrew language that's being spoken today isn't classical Hebrew. So it's actually like Hebrew undergone the expected sound changes, and then like I believe they used some analogies from Arabic in order to like get a sense of what modern Hebrew would have been like if it had continued to be spoken. So in that case, I do think that the Ta Arawakan language that was spoken in the Caribbean um, might in some way be able to be revived, but it would be very difficult, and we'd have to, fill in a lot of the gaps, not by, sourcing other languages like what has been what has been used, but understanding how all of that would have fit into the classical Taino paradigm, if you know.
That's a good take. Because just real quick, right? Because it was Island Arawak in the Greater Antilles at the time of contact, right? There was two forms of Arawak. One tall Arawak and the other was New Arawak. Because we have the recorded phrase "ni Taino" in some sentences starts with verbs first.
Hmm.
So, and what would be a practical approach, in your opinion, in learning a language?
And learning a language or learning a language that's pertinent to the region.
Yeah, that's pertinent to the region, learning how to speak Arawak. What do you think is a practical approach?
So two things. I feel that as a community, we need to learn more about our neighbors, the Kalinago, because they were in constant contact with the Taino. We have their words like Nitiao is a new Arawak word. Even like Waitiao, that's a new. We have their words, like even the word Patea, that's a new Arawak word. They also have it, Pataya. And I think we should look at them first when we're trying to understand what was spoken in our region because they're our neighbors, and if I've had the pleasure of talking to some of them and they think the same way towards us, that there was an ancestral connection between the people of that region. um in terms of like learning a language, there is the Garifuna language which has resources available, and the Kalinago language is there are like now there are books going into like details of it. I'm actually working with Hassan to sort of reintroduce it to the community, and that's a project that's currently going on. If you going about learning an Arawakan language, you shouldn't like go to the Lakona and then claim it to be Taino. First off, that's a bit appropriative. The Lakona people are different culturally, they're different linguistically and geographically, and we might be distantly related to them, but it's not the same to say you're Lakona as saying you're Taino. The two languages are different, and they wouldn't have been mutually intelligible as we have seen with the recorded samples.
Just to piggyback off that, Samantha Thomas, a Lacano speaker, right, our teacher, she says with some of the sentences, it looks Arawak, but it's not local John. So if you could, if you can give some examples how you break down some of the recorded sentences that we have.
Okay. I wish I had like a visual to do this, but let's see, which one am I most confident about? So this one, and I know that we had a little discussion about this the other day, but waiba sinato makabuka wa mekina. So that that was translated, let's leave. I don't care if our master is angry. Um, but if you go through it word by word, waiba, we've seen that as an imperative form. Even in Kalinago and the Garifuna still have waiba as, let's go, let's leave. We have the wa, which is our first person plural suffix. That's our we, our. Aiba is our verb. Aiba, it means to leave or to go somewhere away. So waiba, we leave. and then we have sinato. So sinato, we realize that it has the to at the end, which means that it's either an adjective or it's like a stative verb. It depends on the context. And sina, we can actually trace to other Arawakan languages like Baniwa, which has hina, which means unhappy. So sina to being like mad and hina, the two sound changes, they coincide. And the way you can tell that they coincide is by comparing other words. Like the word for stone, we have Taino siba, and then we have Baniwa hipa. That H at the beginning tells us that there was like a word, there was a sound that was there beforehand. So from that, you're able to basically, by analogy, tell that, we would have said sina for their hina. So sina to makabuka. Now, makabuka, it was a little harder to decode because it was translated as I do not care, is not important to me, but it quite literally means even though or even while. So the way that word breaks down is actually two words. There's maka, which is a how do I say a postposition or a conjunction that means while, and it has cognates in the other Caribbean languages like aka, which is when or if in Kalinago, and then manka, which is Lokono for while or during, and then buka is actually recorded in Kalinago and Lokono. So Lokono has waboka, which means like recently or like in some close time in the past, and then Kalinago buka refer to an ongoing past action. So it's what we'd call like an imperfective. So you'd say like the Lokono actually have the phrase, not the Lokono, the Kalinago have the phrase akan elebwe. Akan elebwe is the male version of Elebwe is the male version of Buka. So the female version would be Akan Buka, which would be even why or even though. So the reason that goes after the sinato is because maka is a preposition. So you see how that works. It's the Arawakan languages, they use postpositions, which means that there's a little strange word order, but it's predictable. So it'd be like English, you know, when instead you go like angry when instead of when, they were angry. That's how that would work. And then we have Wamekina, and Wamekina, it does have the na at the end, which tells us that it's a noun, and wa, our, Meki. Um, so Meki is actually a verb that is within the noun. That's what when you add na to it, it becomes a noun. Meki is like to command or like to order, and it has cognates in I believe, if I remember correctly, Lakono, it has like mukusun, which is like to work or to labor, or mukutun, which is to command or like put in order. So that when you put it together, it literally says Waiba Sinato Makabuka Wamekina, which means let's go even though our master is angry, rather than let's go, I don't care if he's angry. But you see how it has that sense, right?
See, that's a good one. Excellent. So, closing out, any final thoughts?
I do think, I want to tell everyone that this information, it's out there. I didn't need to like spend a lot of money to, find these resources. If you look at the language and you look at the other languages long enough, when you delve yourself into Arawakan languages, you can see how everything pieces together. And I feel like that's what we need to do as a community. understand how Arawakan languages work if we want to understand our own.
Definitely awesome. With that, a pleasure having this discussion with you. And until the next bit.